that he will not allow Iran to enrich uranium, that they will never be able to get a nuclear weapon. Seeing those details, being able to put those in front of Congress will be important, so we can be unified and making sure that we take down the greatest threat for terrorism across the globe.
New details being revealed about the suspects charged with planning a deadly terrorist attack during the White House's America 250 event this past weekend. Authorities were tipped off by the mother of one of the suspects. The suspects are facing multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit murder. Former FBI Assistant Director Dan Bongino says he's been warning about drones for years.
The audience needs to keep in mind the reason the drone problem is so difficult to solve is, think about it, if you were to put an explosive on a drone, which is what the subjects in this case, the suspects were thinking about doing, and I'm sure others are as well. You can't put an obstacle that goes up into low space that's going to stop a flying object from flying into Times Square or New York City or elsewhere.
The Texas governor sends a directive to state regulators regarding data centers.
As data centers continue to be a hot topic around the country and in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has directed state regulators to see that residents are not stuck paying for expensive grid upgrades tied to the rapid expansion of such centers. Texas Scorecard and other outlets report that in a letter to the Public Utility Commission of Texas and the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, the governor conveyed his concern. Brent Bennett of the Texas Public Policy Foundation says the intent of the governor's letter is good, but
there's a balance between, especially when it comes to public utilities like the grid and water systems, there's definitely a need for regulation and preventing the socialization of costs. In fact, privatizing more costs, if done in a correct manner, if the cost allocation is done correctly, is a more market-oriented way than just socializing everything.
Bennett addressed how privatization of costs works.
Instead of uplifting these costs to the whole system and allocating it to customers, you take a certain chunk of those costs and allocate them in terms of a fee, so that when that data center connects to the grid, they pay a fee to interconnect based on their usage. And that fee goes toward, kind of system upgrade costs. The sum of those fees is put towards reducing the amount of costs that are then uplifted to the rest of the system.
I'm Robert Thornton.
And finally, parts of the southeast bracing for heavy rain as a potential tropical storm develops.
Heavy rain, a big concern along the Gulf Coast today as the potential Tropical Storm 1 tracks near the Texas coast. Tropical storm force winds are expected from parts of southwest Louisiana, while widespread rainfall from 5 to 10 inches, with isolated totals approaching 20 inches, could lead to significant flash flooding from Texas into the deep south. Farther north, a major severe weather outbreak is expected across portions of the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Central Illinois and northwestern Indiana face the greatest threat, with storms capable of producing large hail, damaging winds up to 80 miles per hour, and a few potentially strong tornadoes. Heavy downpours may also trigger localized flash flooding. Adam Klotz, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
As we watch world events unfold and fulfill Scripture, it's hard to believe anyone could doubt God and His Word are real, and yet there are so many who either question or completely refuse to believe it. The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that hits the doubt head-on with evidence that proves God is real and His Word is the ultimate authority. Watch it anytime and invite others to watch with you. Just visit stream.afa.net. That's stream.afa.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon for the remainder of the week. I'm joined in studio by Tony Vitagliano. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning.
And Fred Jackson. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Steve Paisley Jordahl will join us for the segment starting at 11:05, but it's just us three guys.
There you go.
We have a lot of folks out. Wesley Wildman's out. Ray Pritchard is in transit as he and his wife Marlene move to Florida permanently. They'll be their permanent home. So we've got a bunch of folks out, and it is summertime. That's what happens during the summer. It is Wednesday, of course, June 17th, which means we have passed the halfway point of the halfway month
Wow.
of the year.
Incredible.
Yep. So a lot of things happening in the news. Fred, let's start us off. You said you get some breaking news.
Yeah, some breaking news out of New York. It seems not that long ago, but in December 2024, the then CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, walked out of his hotel room in New York, and eventually we saw videos of this. Someone walked up behind him and pumped bullets into his back and murdered him right on the streets of New York. Brian Thompson was off to an investors meeting of some type. A young man by the name of Luigi Mangione was arrested a short time later. He was at I think a McDonald's down in Pennsylvania somewhere, and he was arrested and was charged initially with murder. That charge remains in place. Right now, there's our state cases and federal cases against him in connection with his assassination. But the breaking news this morning is that he plans to, at his trial, make a plea of extreme emotional disturbance. Extreme emotional disturbance. Now, I was listening to some legal analysis just before coming into the studio. That is not the same as insanity. It is a temporary emotional state. Apparently, Mangione had a fusion operation back sometime before the event in New York.
Like a fusion in his back or something?
Yes, yes. And I guess an allegation of pain and frustration, stress, etc., etc. The legal beavers say, okay, this is a move by his lawyers to have the charge reduced from murder to manslaughter.
Yep.
The judge has already taken the death penalty off, and even perhaps the life in prison off because of some technical problems with the investigation.
Okay.
But now there seems to be an attempt by his lawyers to move to this extreme emotional disturbance is the legal language being used. From the legal beavers that I've seen reacting to this in the last 20 minutes or so, they don't think this is going to fly just because of the evidence that's in place. This was the evidence, they say, this is according to these lawyers, the evidence is overwhelming that this was well planned, that he had a gripe against insurance companies, medical insurance companies. I think he's even had cheerleaders in the courtroom in initial appearances prior to today. So, and they say, if the court was willing to go along with this, does this give license to anyone? Let's think of Charlie Kirk's murder.
Right.
Does it give license to anyone to say, I was under a lot of stress, and that caused me to go out and shoot this person?
Yeah.
So,
it
is an attempt, as I say, to get the charge reduced to manslaughter so that it will not be any life sentence of any type. Reduce the sentence, you get some treatment, and you're released at a fairly early date.
Well, and those words caused me, Tony, that I remember way back in the 60s. Now you don't, obviously.
Right.
Fred and I do. But there was a move in this country, came from the Democratic Party, to create more understanding for those people who commit crimes affected by poverty. We see this, it continues.
Yeah.
That people are not as culpable as the evidence may seem because circumstances created the mindset or the feelings in the person that, as Fred said, caused them to commit this crime. And I think Fred's exactly right. If the judges allow this, and if this were to spread, then what you're saying is that people are less responsible for the crimes for which they're being tried, and therefore murder can be cut down to manslaughter. That's a huge drop in terms of how much time Luigi Mangione would spend in prison if he, in fact, he were found to be guilty.
Yeah, so manslaughter, the significance of this is manslaughter cannot be premeditated, right, under current U.S. law. That's what that would mean. So in trying to push this defense, I'm with Fred. It's a hard sell. I think it would be a very hard sell because the evidence based on video evidence that we see, if the person in the video is in fact Luigi Mangione, and it's determined, then that person knew where the CEO would be,
right,
what time he would be there, and how he wanted to carry out the act. And if that's not premeditated and planned, I don't know what would be. And the significance of getting, if the court were to go along with this and drop that down from murder to manslaughter, you've got, to your point about Charlie Kirk, we have a growing population in this country of people who are mentally unstable, and then they're put on SSRIs, sometimes powerful SSRIs. And
what are SSRIs? So people,
the acronym. It's basic.
Yeah, you don't have to explain the acronym.
Yeah, it's just there's strong medications that are often used to treat psychiatric, severe psychiatric issues. Now they're lesser forms and doses, obviously, that people take for valid reasons. But I just say that to say you could possibly see an increase of people carrying out similar acts and making this a similar case in defense.
Well, you could say I have
this person
Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
I was so angry with the president for all he's done.
Yeah.
That's why I tried to shoot him.
Yeah, I was so angry with him in the throes of passion. I went and hid in a bush and waited for him to come out on the golf course and try and take a shot at him. You know, that type of.
By the way, Fred, this the gun that Mangione used, I'm guessing that was an illegal weapon, or was this something? Was this a legal weapon that?
What do they call it? A computer generated.
Oh, 3D?
3D printed.
Oh, yes.
A ghost gun.
Yeah, I believe in
this.
Yeah, that's
so. But it's still illegal.
Still illegal.
So,
in
but that
New York.
adds to this. Isn't, in other words, this isn't somebody who had an enhanced carry permit, and then he saw the CEO Brian Thompson on the street, and then in a fit of rage, he pulled out a legally owned weapon that he had for his own protection.
No.
A 3D printed. Tony, you know more about this kind of thing than I do. You have to go. You talk about planning.
Yeah.
You are actually going through the effort and using the technology to create a weapon that you know is illegal to own. So I hope this fails and fails utterly.
Right.
I guess his attorneys, Mangione's attorneys, or attorney, I'm not sure how many he has, if he has a team of attorneys or whatever, but they have a responsibility to try anything.
Yeah,
and
if
the video evidence is so clear, if he said something to people, I'm going to kill this guy, all that goes into premeditation. If that evidence is so overwhelmingly against Mangione, the attorneys only have this kind of card, ace in the hole kind of thing.
You know, he's pleaded not guilty to this. But for those of us who just observe, we're not lawyers. It's strange the way the legal system works. So his lawyers are now saying he was under extreme emotional disturbance.
I was thinking the same thing about that.
That's an admission of guilt. Now we're saying our client did it.
Yes.
Yes.
But he wasn't in his right mind.
Right.
Okay. So this is a step. We now his lawyers are saying, yeah, he did it, but.
Yeah.
All right. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, because I don't know if you can back this up. Put it in reverse.
Yeah. Well, but you can. I think you can. And again, none of us are lawyers here,
right.
And either of you can jump in here. But I think that the way the legal system works, it's not unusual for an attorney to tell his or her client, say not guilty. We make sure this goes to trial, and then we will figure out the defense. I think they are allowed to change some of that up. However, if you're on the jury, you figure out what's going on. That his attorneys, Mangione's attorneys, have looked at the evidence and said, we're in big trouble here.
Yeah.
In parentheses, because you're guilty.
Yeah, to me, it's an indication that both the defense and the prosecution see the direction. They have a feeling of the direction that the trial and the verdict is going to go at this point. So.
Well, anyway, this is breaking. It's on we have several news stations on here in the studio, and a lot of them were talking about that. But they've moved on, so I guess we will as well.
We can move on. All right. President Trump had the G7 meeting in France. That big meeting is about to wrap up. And as we're sitting here, we're just waiting for President Trump to have his last words at the closing news conference. The French leader Macron has been speaking at this news conference over the last couple of minutes. But President Trump is going to get up, I assume. He had a pre-last news conference a few minutes ago where he talked about the leader from India and what good friends they are and we stand behind India, et cetera, et cetera. He talked a little bit about this Memorandum of Understanding, which is what everybody really is interested in. And there's a lot of anxiety over the alleged details. And I say alleged details because we haven't seen the actual document yet. We were just talking about CNN a few moments ago said, we have a copy. And I've heard other news agencies say, we have a copy. Or we have a source that tells us this. We really don't know yet. But it would seem there are a few details that are pretty clear. And the president has addressed this already. Is that once this is signed, and right now it's scheduled to be signed in Geneva on Friday morning our time, at some point, that the president has confirmed that once this is signed, he says what happens immediately, the Strait of Hormuz opens, the big ships can haul all the oil that they can handle out there. There's not going to be any interference.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Gentlemen, start your engines. What he said the other day, the U.S. blockade will come down.
And the mines that Iran has laid will be removed.
Now, I did see, it was speaking of the Strait of Hormuz and what's been going on there, there was one news agency that was reporting this morning that in this deal, Iran still wants the ability to some kind of charge to vessels leaving there. So that, I don't know, it's one of those flies that gets in the ointment and messes things up. I'm not sure. But that's a possibility. So right now, we want to caution our listeners. We are reporting what other news agencies are reporting, what they say they know. All right?
And sometimes the way this works, Fred, I think you confirm this if this is accurate, is that the Trump administration or all administrations will release documents like this to the news agencies and do what's called place an embargo on it. You can't release it until we sign the deal. But then these news agencies do talk in generalities about what might be in it. Isn't that the way these embargoes work?
That is true. And the other practice is that governments will release a few details. They'll get somebody to say to a reporter at CBS, hey, this is in it, but you can't quote me.
Right.
This is an effort to get some of it out there to see how the public reacts initially, and then they can change the final document.
Right.
So it's...
And my understanding is, as far as we know, this is a pretty short document, right? Couple pages, maybe?
Couple of pages, that's what we're told.
So all the devil will be in the details as they take 60 days to hammer this out.
Yeah.
All right, so Tony, we don't, and we're trying to be disciplined ourselves here and not talk about what we don't absolutely know for sure. All we're going on is what other people are saying is in it, or probably in it, or a source said is in it. But we do know for the war to come to an end, there are certain things that both sides have to agree to. And the Strait of Hormuz is one of those. Now, there are people on the conservative side of the spectrum. I think Lindsey Graham and some others have been critical in advance that the strait was open before the war. So that part, we're only going back to what the status quo was before the war started. Certainly, there has to be more to this deal than just that for America, for the Trump administration to declare any kind of a victory. But I haven't heard. All we hear is rumors regarding, money that's going to be channeled, assets unfrozen, those kind of things.
Yeah, I don't, unless we all could be surprised. There could be some very serious concessions that Iran makes in the final Memorandum of Understanding. But everything that I've seen being leaked, and I think has been confirmed by some members of the administration, like the $300 billion, I believe that was confirmed by Vance in an interview.
Yes.
So that's not, there are some leaks that are rumors, and then there are leaks that get confirmed. So what I've seen being leaked is I have yet to see something. Maybe I want to see what the nuclear concessions are that Iran makes, the details of those.
That's got to be important.
That's got to be important. There needs to be, for Trump to have be able to claim any semblance of victory in this situation, there needs to be a big bullet point. I know the details can be hammered out over the next 60 days, but there needs to be a big bullet point that Iran will be great. They will hand over, uranium dust, or Iran has agreed for, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, to freeze their nuclear program, or, submit to independent inspections. But from what I've seen, there's not a lot in there that looks like we're getting anything from it.
We have to. I think the Trump administration has to have that. Has to have something. Has to have something regarding the nuclear program. Listen. I don't know a lot scientifically about the difference between having, and Fred, maybe you can jump in here, having the development of nuclear power plants, and how far you have to go beyond that to enrich the uranium. My understanding is that's a pretty big leap, pretty big difference. So, that's probably something that we could either have outside verification, or we could pretty well know from intelligence assets within Iran if there's a distinction. I would be okay, and who cares what I think, but just personally, I would be okay if Iran says 10 or 20-year moratorium on enrichment of uranium, yes, we agree. Here's the steps for verification, but we want to be able to develop nuclear power, which I think is smart for any country if they can afford to do that. I would be okay with that, but we've got to have some sort of win here with regards to their nuclear program.
Yeah, and the problem is, as some people have pointed out, you're dealing with Iran.
Yeah.
And Iran has a history of saying, yes, sir, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they don't. The other thing that is clear, there will be no regime change.
Right.
That was a big selling point.
Yeah.
When all of this started. Trump's famous words, help is on the way. And we need to be praying for those dear folks in Iran, the Christians.
Yeah, a lot of Christians.
In the last 3 months, the Iranian government, army, whatever the case may be, they've killed thousands of their own.
In brutal fashion.
We don't even know. Because the internet's been blacked out there, we have no idea what's been going on within the borders of Iran.
So, far more than the deaths that have occurred because of Israeli and U.S. bombing has been the thousands and thousands of deaths at the hands of the regime.
Right.
And so that is going to be talked about because regime change was a big selling point. We're going to go in there and we're going to rescue these people. And we're going to go back 49 years and bring in, remember the relative of the Shah that was there in 1979. Right. He was interviewed constantly. We did interviews with ministries that represented Christians in there, and their hopes were really, really high.
Right.
That was going to happen. And the other element, and I know we have to go to a break here in a second, but the other element is there's a lot of tension right now between President Trump and Israel.
Mm-hmm. Let's hold that part for after the break. Let me just add to what you were saying, and Tony, we got a minute or two here. One of the things that seems obvious, since the regime has got even more of a death grip on that country, that it's going to be in the future, I'm not going to say impossible, but increasingly unlikely that military force could be used in the future to punish Iran or to try to get regime change.
Yeah, look, everybody's getting calmed down, Tony. Whenever I got the details of the $300 billion going to Iran, I had a different reaction than I'm a little more measured right now. Because I know, and everybody here knows, including the Trump administration, and people can think logically, that $300 billion, do we honestly think it's going to go towards, I mean, some of it will go towards rebuilding some infrastructure and helping the people of Iran, but a lot of it's going to go into jump-starting back the military-industrial complex of Iran and that regime, and it's going to go back into their proxy groups. It's going to go back into their drone and missile production. And I agree. I think Iran is going to come out, maybe controversial, they're going to come out of this stronger. Uh-huh. And let me explain why. Is because in war, when the war first starts, nobody knows what the other's going to do, right? But now Iran has seen what it actually looks like for both the United States, the number one military in the world, and Israel, the number one military in the Middle East, most technically advanced and in size, to attack you. And they see what that attack looks like. And so now, in addition to knowing what that looks like, they're going to be producing more weapons that are relevant to what that looks like. And that regime is going to decentralize even more. It wasn't enough to collapse the regime, it wasn't enough to take out the Ayatollah. It wasn't enough to collapse it. That just goes to show that the IRGC so decentralized their leadership that they managed to stay in place during all of this, and they're going to do it even more. I think they're going to split up the people they had over these groups, militias, whatever it was, all over the country. They're going to split those up even more, so that if you take out the head of this guy, we've got two more underneath him.
Yeah.
So I agree. I don't think there's going to be. It would be very hard in the future to uproot them. It would take probably a collapse from within. That's just my opinion. $300 billion is plenty, more than enough to jumpstart the IRGC's plans, and we're all delusional if we think that's not what they're going to do.
All right. Well, that just seems to be the hardcore reality on the ground. This was always kind of a long shot. I think that Israel and the U.S. probably thinking that Iran was built like other countries, and you decapitate the leadership and you can sow enough chaos that the people can take over. But Iran I think they've been preparing for this eventuality all this time.
Right.
And they decentralized enough to survive. And I think you're exactly right, Tony. They're probably going to learn from that. Hey, listen, this may be a job only for God.
Right.
I top military in the Middle East, top in the world, hit you with everything they've got.
Yeah.
And you survive. Maybe this is something only God can do. All right. Take a short break. We will be right back with more.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
There was this young boy once. He loved to draw. He'd take a pencil and a piece of paper and he'd draw anything around him that caught his fancy. Once that young boy was asked to draw a picture of a horse by an elderly gentleman. When he'd finished with the drawing, the gentleman was so pleased with the boy's work that he gave him a whole $1. Now that was back when $1 was $1. That seemed to spur the youngster on. He kept drawing. He worked at it. He loved it. He gave himself to it. Soon he had landed himself a job with a newspaper as a cartoonist. Now he was real proud of himself when he got that job. But while he thought it was something to get excited about, one of his superiors didn't see it that way. The editor of the paper where he worked in Kansas City called him in one day, said he wanted to talk to him about his future. He was quite frank with the young cartoonist about his job and about his future, and he said to him, "You don't have any talent. Why don't you get out of the drawing business and into something where you have a chance to succeed?" Well, the young fellow thought it over, gave some serious consideration to doing just that, quitting his drawing and going into another line of business, for he did, like most of us, he did want to be a success. And the editor should have known something about talent, he thought. But after considerable thought, he decided to stay in the drawing business even if he didn't have any talent. You'll find people like that occasionally, people who won't quit, people who won't give up, even if others think they're doomed to failure. No one has ever found the magic formula that separates those who refuse to quit from those who give up at the first setback. A lot of time, however, it can be nothing more than the Spirit of God driving them on. For sometimes there's not a single person in this whole world who believes in us other than Him. That's one of His traits. He believes in us even when no one else does. He believes in us even when we don't believe in ourselves. That's what made Him face that ugly cross. He believed in our goodness when we displayed our sinfulness. He never gave up on us. He still is counting on us to this very day. He's disappointed a lot of times, but He never gives up. When everyone else has counted us out, He's still pulling for us. Oh, by the way, that young artist who had no talent but wouldn't quit, he went on to pretty great things. His name was Walt Disney. No one can remember the name of the Kansas City editor.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
Hello, everyone. Tim Wildmon, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. We are going to Italy in March of 2027. We're also going to Greece in March of 2027, and we're doing those tours back to back if you want to do both of them. In Italy, we'll be going to Venice, we'll ride the gondola and see all the sights there, and we'll go to Pisa and walk on the Leaning Tower of. If you fall off, we're not responsible. Also, we're going to Rome and see the Sistine Chapel and the Colosseum and all the catacombs. We'll see all the sights of Rome. And in Greece, it's the Footsteps of Paul trip, so the places where Paul went in the Bible mentioned in Greece. If you want information on any of these tours, go to tours.afa.net, tours.afa.net, tours.afa.net.
You are my refuge and my shield. I have put my hope in your word. Psalm 119, verse 114.
This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
And welcome back to today's issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon today, joined in studio by Tony Vitagliano and Fred Jackson. By the way, folks, we do recommend that you get the AFR app from your regular app store, whatever that might be. AFR.net is a place where you can go just to listen to the show. But if you want to carry it with you, you get the AFR app, and wherever you have good signal, you can listen to this program and others on American Family Radio. And let your friends know about American Family Radio. And even if you're not around a terrestrial radio station with the old-fashioned tower, you can still listen to AFR, and you are our best advertisement for American Family Radio. So let your friends and family members know about the AFR app so that they can listen as well. All right, Fred.
Yeah, we were talking just before the break what Iran has learned from this conflict. We talked about they learned that if they control the Strait of Hormuz, that's a tremendous economic weapon against the whole world because we depend on oil. And that applied a lot of pressure to the United States to resolve this because, and they also, hey, United States is heading for an election.
Right.
And and they've got, the Iranians, and understand what I'm saying here is, the Iranians also knew they had the American media on their side for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing to watch the coverage of the Associated Press of this. On a day-by-day basis, they talked about what the Israel and the United States was doing to these individuals. You know, Israel in Lebanon, et cetera, et cetera. So you had the American media, because they hate Donald Trump,
right,
cheerleading almost for the Iranians in this. And cheerleading the fact that, okay, Donald Trump is having to pull back now. Donald Trump is in trouble because of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
But I think one of the things that shocked me, and I'm not sure if the Iranians, well, they probably did plan this, they found a way to divide the United States and Israel. Remember when all this started on February 28th? It was a joint bombing effort. Israel together with the United States, Israel going after the regime leaders and killing them off, and the United States going after the Iranian military. And if they were meeting in a room somewhere, the leaders that were left after all of that, they said, let's find a way to divide Israel and the United States. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to tie removing Israel that was having to go after Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is just an arm of the Iranian regime. That's all they are. We're going to have Hezbollah keep sending missiles into Israel, which forces Israel to respond. And they did. Israel has responded. They actually moved troops into Lebanon. So Iran has been able to tie the Memorandum of Understanding to Israel's response to the terrorist group Hezbollah. And so that's what we have. Perhaps what has surprised some people is that President Trump has turned against Prime Minister Netanyahu and turned against Israel. That's what it appears like. I want to play you just a montage of audio from President Trump in recent days of what he's saying about Prime Minister Netanyahu and what he's saying about his importance in his mind to the future of Israel. Cut number 2.
Without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did. We had a great relationship. I didn't like that he did an attack based on there's a very minor little thing with some drones that were released, and he ends up doing I saw that attack. I saw where that bomb went. Did you see what happened? That was too much.
He described Netanyahu to the New York Times as a very difficult guy and went on to say, to be honest with you, he should be very thankful for us, to us for doing this, because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, Israel wouldn't be around for 2 hours.
I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down. That was a very terrible thing.
The comments a reference to the U.S. operation to kill Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, which Trump says Israel backed out of.
All right. So I think at the very least we can say there is a great deal of tension right now between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. the comment that, Israel's existence depends on me. If Joe Biden had said something like that, I mean, there would be an uproar over that. So whether that relationship can be repaired remains to be seen.
Tony, I can see both perspectives on this, what President Trump was saying, and Benjamin Netanyahu's firmness. I don't know what the right word is in terms of prosecuting I'm not sure it's technically a war, but his efforts against Hezbollah. So in the first place, Netanyahu has to do what he thinks is best for the survival of Israel. And on the other hand, I think President Trump, here's the thing about President Trump. We say this fairly frequently. President Trump is going to be President Trump. He, when he says a lot of things off the cuff, sometimes they can be misunderstood, and those things are played up by the news media. Like when he said, "I love inflation."
Right.
Nobody thought he actually meant he loves inflation and doesn't care about what people are going through because of it. But he speaks off the cuff, and in the middle of answering a question, maybe he isn't as precise as he should. After we talked about this morning in our story meeting, and after listening and reading some more about what he was saying in terms of the existence of Israel, it is probably true that if there is a country in the world whose closeness to that country has helped guarantee its existence, it is the United States. I think we talked about, Great Britain. The UK is probably second, but probably not a close second. By the way, folks, I do want to make it clear that what I'm about to say is not meant to discount the hand of God in protecting Israel. And let me just take a little detour here. When my wife and I first got married 45 years ago, for about the first 2 years of our marriage, when I would tell my wife, for example, "I love you with my whole heart," I would always say, "Except for Jesus." And my wife would say the same thing. Right. "I love you more than anyone in the world, except for Jesus." Well, after a couple of years of that, we said, okay, in parentheses, whatever I say, "I love you more than anyone else," you will understand that Jesus is accepted.
Right.
Okay, so that we didn't have to repeat it. So coming back to Israel, I want our listeners to understand, in parentheses, I always mean that God himself protects Israel. God himself is the one who reconstituted that nation. I think it was a divine act in 1948. So just please understand, that's always in parentheses. I think the United States, the fact that we have been an ally, a close ally of Israel since 1948, including Harry S. Truman, shocking the world by recognizing the new state of Israel, that if we had not been by Israel's side, other countries probably would have invaded a long time ago. I think Turkey would have. I think Russia, the Soviet Union would have. And the fact that the shadow of the United States military has always kind of been over that country, I think has helped preserve it. When President Trump said himself, he said, "Israel wouldn't exist without me," I think what he meant was that beyond other presidents, President Trump has been the strongest in support of that country, including moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem.
Right.
Okay? So I think that's what the president was saying. But in terms of Fred and you, and I'm going to turn to you in a second, feel free to disagree. I'm fine with that. This is what this show's about. But in terms of the president criticizing publicly Benjamin Netanyahu, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
I mentioned in our story meeting this morning, I'm sure Dwight Eisenhower said a lot of things to George Patton and Bernard Montgomery. Those were always feuding generals. Montgomery for the British.
Huge egos.
Huge egos.
Yeah.
but you don't do it in public.
Right.
I think that's the mistake of what President Trump did. You talk to Netanyahu privately.
Right.
You want to cuss him out, that's when you do it. You don't do these things publicly. Anyway, I've had my say. What do you say? And then Fred, I'm sure you've got a perspective on this as well.
Yeah. So, two things can be true at once. I tend to lean more towards what you've kind of laid out. The context matters. So, here's the reality Trump is faced with. The SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, would be empty is estimated to be empty in about 80 days. Okay. And the reason why gas prices, now we're all saying gas prices have been kept low. The reason why they're at the level they are, we are all paying more. I understand that. They're too high right now. The reason they're not higher is because we've been releasing from the SPR since this conflict started. We have 80 days left. And then once that's empty, inflation really takes off. Trump's in a pinch, and he has got to get something done with Iran. And I think in his fashion, he gets frustrated easily. And so while he's trying to get this deal hammered out with Iran, Israel and Hezbollah are still exchanging blows. And I think his frustration, which is short, he has a short fuse, gets the best of him. And he spoke, like you said, spoke in a manner publicly that you just shouldn't, and said things that you shouldn't say out loud. I don't think anybody here, and maybe I could be wrong, would disagree that he embellishes. So maybe in saying that Israel wouldn't exist if it weren't for me or if it weren't for the United States, really probably what he actually means, and like you said, this is probably something he should have said to Netanyahu. If there's a disagreement, you should say it in private, is Israel would have, if we hadn't put our assets over there, our 2 carrier groups, all our assets at our bases, Israel would have taken big blows from Iran.
It would have taken a beating.
They would have. A lot of Jews would have died. I mean, that's the reality. Now,
we shot down a lot of missiles and rockets from offshore.
Right. Now, could God could intervene and he could do as he pleases, and obviously. So maybe that wouldn't have happened. But the reality is that our assets were over there helping to protect Israel. And I think what Trump meant, and like I said, again, shouldn't have said in public, but I think what he meant was, if it weren't for us helping you at this time, a lot of bad things would have happened in Israel. This would have been worse than it was. So that's kind of where I stand. Again, shouldn't be said out in public. But, the context of it, I understand the context of it. Now, Mr. Fred may disagree, but I'll turn it over to you, sir.
What's your perspective on it?
Well, a couple of things. And again, we're waiting to see the details in this Memorandum of Understanding. But if Iran has won this concession, that the deal is off if Israel continues sending missiles and soldiers into Lebanon in response to an attack from Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm.
If the Iranians, if that's in there,
right,
and the United States has agreed to that, then at any time, Iran can call up their Hezbollah leaders and say, hey, throw some missiles into northern Israel, because we want to stir the pot again.
Right.
And here's a proviso section number 13 of this agreement says the deal is off if Israel responds. So I think it's if that is in there, that leaves the United States very vulnerable, because what are you going to do then?
I think personally, I think that's why the money is in play in this deal, is because I think the U.S., the Trump administration, whoever is the strategist, I'm sure there's many voices speaking to this, the strategy involved in this. I think they understood that that vulnerability, because I think you have absolutely accurately described what the mindset is in Tehran and what they would do once they wanted the deal to be off. They would do exactly that with Hezbollah. And I think the U.S. has said, and this is part of why I'm going to give the Trump administration some time here to make its case, if there is money involved, even unfreezing assets, because that's the only card the U.S. has to play. Because we are stuck, Tony, to your point, we are stuck, and the world is on the verge of, escalating inflation with, the Strait of Hormuz. The only thing we really have that we can put in play is Iran. We will continue to dribble out money to you and unfreeze this asset and then unfreeze this asset as long as you're playing ball. And that's the only card we got to play.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Fred I agree with Mr. Fred that
you can just call him Fred.
Sorry.
You're very respectful.
I slip back into it sometimes.
You're very respectful.
I agree with Fred in that I would be surprised if the concession for the money is in this deal and any type of agreement that Israel won't attack Hezbollah is in there. I think Iran wanted one or the other. You give us the money, you don't question what we spend the money on, you can keep doing your thing in Lebanon, with Israel can keep attacking Hezbollah because we're going to keep paying Hezbollah and we're going to keep providing them with munitions. We're going to keep that going. Or Iran would have said, sure, don't worry about the money, but Israel can't do anything in Lebanon or it's a violation of this agreement and we start things back up again. I think Iran probably wanted one or the other. And so if both are in there, if we agreed that Israel is not to intervene and, attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, whatever that would look like, and we're handing them money, that would be a lose. That would be a lose-lose in this, as far as this area goes.
I don't think Netanyahu agrees to that. I mean, the U.S. can't tell Israel what to do.
No.
And Netanyahu's not going to agree to that either.
No, and he's held several news conferences. Obviously in Hebrew, but we've heard the translations. And the Israeli people, given what happened with Hamas in 2023,
right,
the Israeli people aren't going to agree saying we're not going to respond to anything coming in from Hezbollah.
Right.
They're not going to agree to that.
Right.
Well, and I think this is why Benjamin Netanyahu said maybe several weeks ago that we are going to be working towards being self-sufficient.
Yes.
Remember he said that?
Yes, absolutely.
I think he understands that that the danger posed to their own survival does not allow you the luxury to be dependent upon the U.S.
Yeah.
Because President Trump, like we've said, he may fluctuate in terms of his support. Certainly, if you get an AOC and it becomes president, I know that's a long shot, but we were talking about that yesterday. Polling numbers showing her. But you get someone like that in the White House, they're going to abandon Israel altogether.
Yes.
And so Israel really has no choice. They can welcome the alliance that they have with the United States, but they cannot depend on the goodwill of whoever's in the White House because one day that may disappear.
It could. Yeah.
One other thing I would add to this is that I hope when President Trump comes home from the G7 meeting, he has a spiritual advisor team that's there.
Yeah.
I would love to see a meeting with our ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, sits down with the president, maybe a Franklin Graham, a Gary Bauer, somebody like that, and sits down and goes to Scripture with him on where God stands with Israel.
Right.
Read a little bit about what the Assyrians were going to attack Judah.
Yeah.
And what happened to those 180,000 Assyrian soldiers. The Jewish people got up the next morning and there were 180,000 dead bodies.
Yeah.
Because the angel of the Lord came in. And that's very real.
Right.
And he needs to be aware of that. I don't think he has any deep biblical teaching. And I think he needs to be aware of that.
Well, and also let me just say this. We said earlier that the U.S. has been a great friend to Israel
absolutely
since 1948 Listen, I can't speak for God. I'm not a prophet, so I can't tell you because we did A, B, and C for Israel, X, Y, and Z happened, or X, Y, and Z didn't happen to the United States. But biblically speaking, it seems clear to me that God has blessed our country during that time and perhaps has protected our country so that we would be available. Listen, folks, I hope you understand there is no contradiction between saying God protects Israel and God uses human beings to protect Israel to enforce his decree.
Yes.
You look at World War II, there's no contradiction between saying God defeated Hitler and God used members of the U.S. and the British and the Canadian and the Australian and the French used men who died on beaches and died on battlefields to defeat Hitler. There's no contradiction between saying those things, and there's also no contradiction between saying Israel's not always right in what it does.
That's right.
But God still blesses America for standing by her and being God's shield. And the day we stop being that, we may find out what it costs us as a nation to turn our back on Israel.
Okay.
So, but I do like what you're saying, Fred. I hope that there are those who will talk to the president and at least encourage him to keep those kinds of criticisms private. If President Trump were to ever say, and we need to listen, we need to be praying for the president so that he listens to the right voices.
Yes.
But if the president were to ever say, we're not standing with Israel anymore, they're on their own, okay, that would be, I would be terrified to hear that come from a president of the United States. Some people don't think it matters. I do think it matters. When you stand with Israel, I think God takes that into account in his dealings with you.
Amen.
And we've got a lot on our plate. If God wanted to judge the U.S., we've got a lot of stuff, including something we could be talking about in terms of Pride Night for Major League Baseball when Steve Jordahl comes in. But folks, pray not only for the peace of Jerusalem, as the Bible commands, but pray for President Trump, members of Congress who make decisions about allocating funds, and pray for the people of Iran who are stuck, at least right now, under a very totalitarian and brutal regime.
Amen.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break for news, and when we come back, Steve Paisley Jordahl will be here for more of what's happening here and abroad.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Where can you access instruction and inspiration from scholars, apologists, authors, preachers, and activists to deepen your Christian understanding? You could enroll in seminary, but a better way might be the AFA Cultural Institute. You'll find a collection of more than 50 informative inspirational video lectures with more to come. Visit stream.afa.net to experience the AFA Cultural Institute.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Steve Pugh. President Trump held a bilateral meeting with the Egyptian president at the G7 summit in France today. The president discussing the peace agreement with Iran, saying they will not be allowed to have any nuclear weapons in this deal. He also claims the markets have been making a strong recovery after the deal was first announced.
It is going to be opening. It's already partially opened. It's going to be opening up soon in full over the next day or two. And the market has gone wild, and oil has come tumbling down, and it's getting to very close to where it was before the crisis. You know, the reason oil stayed low is because we were taking ships out every night that you didn't even know about. Our Navy did a great job. Nobody knew what was happening. That's why oil didn't go to $300 a barrel.
And even though gas prices drop much slower than they rise, Fox Business contributor Phil Flynn says there is good news.
I was so excited today. We saw gasoline prices at $4.02 a gallon, which sounds high from where it was a year ago, but a lot lower than where it was just a few weeks ago, and a lot lower than it was under President Biden when it was over $5 a gallon. And we're probably going to fall below $4 a gallon. That's going to be a big help for inflation pressures. Diesel prices are going to come down. That's a good price and a good boom for businesses. So this is real positive. And if we reopen the strait, we get a flood of oil, and that means more downside pressure.
New details being revealed about the suspects charged with planning a deadly attack during the White House's America 250 event this past weekend. Todd Pyro has more.
5 suspects in custody and 23 potential plotters that allegedly discussed pre-operational activity on the Signal app have all been identified. The men arrested are Tyson Proper, Brian Omar Roa, Michael Allen Thomas, who wrote, quote, "You're imagining executions, right?" Daniel Eskridge, who allegedly stated, "I will be on the ground leading from the front" as one of the 5 snipers. And Abraham Alvarez, who allegedly wrote, quote, "As many and as deadly as we can get." Court documents say the suspects were motivated by an anti-government ideology with discussions of targeting politicians, billionaires.
Georgia elections for governor and Senate are all set for the general elections. Alexandria Hoff from Washington discusses who got selected to run for Georgia.
President's 11th hour pick, Republican Congressman Mike Collins. He defeats former college football coach Derek Dooley. Dooley was endorsed by outgoing Governor Brian Kemp. Collins will go on to battle incumbent Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff. President Trump reacting with, quote, "So happy for highly respected Congressman Mike Collins. I'll be doing big Trump rallies for Mike in Georgia." Now, in the state's Republican runoff for governor, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones leaned heavily on being the Trump-backed candidate, but billionaire healthcare executive Rick Jackson, he spent heavily, and he's going to face off against Keisha Lance Bottoms in November.
Meanwhile, Everett West wins the Democratic primary runoff for U.S. Senate in Alabama. The attorney defeated businessman DeCarrie Lariat and moves on to the November general election. With new polling data out, how concerned should the GOP be with keeping control of Congress? Caleb Castile has more.
New polling data says the Democrats have a 5-point edge over the GOP for the November elections. The data also stated that 49% of voters want the Democrats to gain control of Congress and pull off a double flip of the House and Senate that hasn't been done in 20 years. 44% wish the GOP would retain control. Ryan Fournier is the founder of Students for Trump. He went on Jenna Ellis in the Morning to remind those who are discouraged with the results of the polls not to take anything to heart concerning the new data.
I would take it with a grain of salt. So you've seen how these polls shape up and how most of them turn out to be highly inaccurate.
One commonly believed reason for voters wanting a change is the Trump administration's recent focus on foreign policy, with record gas prices and inflation back in the States. Fournier says that the administration now has a big focus on that in the last few weeks. However, Democrats have big ideas in terms of the places that they can gain seats, despite recent redistricting favoring the GOP.
The Democrats always say they're optimistic about taking Texas, right? Now they're optimistic about taking Alaska. Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
I'm Caleb Castile.
There's more news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. AFA aims to evangelize the lost and disciple the believer. We aim to strengthen biblical marriages and equip parents to raise godly children.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon today, and for the remainder of the week, I'm joined in studio by Tony Vitagliano. And now Fred Jackson's been replaced by Steve Paisley-Jordahl, and he comes equipped with the appropriate attire.
Yeah, got some Paisley on, and you can't replace Fred Jackson.
Well, that's true.
Just I can
Figure
just
of
hope to
speech
follow
only.
him. And wait a minute, Vitagliano. Is there some relation there?
Maybe a little bit.
There is a little bit.
Oh,
little bit of relationship here.
Have you made the jump, Steve, and just changed your name on your driver's license to like Steve Paisley Jordahl?
I need to.
You need
and
to.
That's
Didn't you tell me one time that people, when they see you around town or otherwise,
I have
they
had
say,
people, yeah.
Yeah, they say the Paisley. That's you got to say Steve Paisley Jordahl.
They have, and people come by the studio here looking for Paisley.
Yeah.
So I keep saying we need to get some gear. AFA needs to get some Paisley gear.
Paisley gear.
Yeah.
We could single-handedly bring back the Paisley.
We could.
Yeah.
We could. We got some awesome listeners that could help us with that.
Can you imagine if we had, I don't know if it's even possible. Is it possible to have Paisley T-shirts?
A Paisley hat or some kind of a Paisley, maybe even a regular T-shirt with just a Paisley design on the pocket or something, a little classy look or something.
Yeah. All right. Hey, get to work on that.
Yes, sir. I have been given a direction from the vice president. I can do this.
All right. What do you want to talk about, Steve?
All right. Yesterday, we spent a good deal of our time talking a little bit about President Trump and his comments. I know you guys dealt a lot with President Trump and his comments on Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. We started yesterday, my segment here, with him talking about his being upset with their bombing of Lebanon and the fact that he said, let Syria go in and finish the job with Lebanon.
Yeah, I didn't understand that yesterday.
It was confusing to me too. It seemed like the biggest, diss that's what the kids are saying in the world. I mean, to say we're going to let this Arab country do your security work for you. And I guess I have to preface this by saying that Israel has not signed off on this idea, but I found out yesterday in talking with one of our good close friends, a little bit of background on it. First, let me remind you what we're talking about. This is President Trump talking about Syria finishing the job, cut 3.
Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long, and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it.
And Syria, what in the world were we wondering?
I was confused by that comment.
I kind of was too. We said as much. So I had a discussion yesterday with our good friend Gary Bauer of American Values, a story running today on American Family Radio, and you'll find, I believe, this story at afn.net. And he said that discussions about this kind of a thing have been going on for a little bit. Let's listen to cut 4.
I think the exchange on Syria is being completely misunderstood. And a lot of it involves what is happening behind the scenes for weeks and weeks and weeks in Washington. People have been talking about an idea that has been floated by multiple countries, including Lebanon. But Israel cannot go in and occupy part of Lebanon in order to get Hezbollah out. That would end up turning the entire Lebanese population against Israel. There has been going on for quite some time a conversation about whether elements in Syria, with the cooperation of the Lebanese government, could work together to take out Hezbollah.
Now, Syria was Bashar al-Assad's stronghold. He was the dictator there. And when Iran fell, so did he, basically. And he's been replaced by somebody that...
when Iran fell, what do you mean?
When we first started attacking Iran, when we went after their remember, we dropped the bomb on them and we decimated their economy last
summer.
Yeah. The money to support Bashar al-Assad dried up, and his support dried up, and he fled to, I believe, Moscow. And there was another person that has replaced him. And Donald Trump says he gets along fine with this new Syrian leader. And he's kind of comparing it to Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela, who's Venezuelan, but doing our work there because she's under pressure to do our work. Anyway, so there's a relationship there. And they've been talking about letting, for the reasons that Gary just mentioned, letting Syria go in and take care of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The only thing I'll add to this, and then you guys can go here, is that Israel has not been a part of those discussions. Mm-hmm. And that I looked yesterday, as far as I could see, they have not commented on the possibility specifically of Iran going into southern Lebanon. But Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli leadership have been very clear, strong, adamant that no one is going to take care of Israel's security except for Israel. They're not going to put it in anybody, Syria's or the United States' hands.
Okay, now before I toss this over to Tony, and you can chime in too with your opinion, Steve, but let me just ask you this. Now, the provisional government that has been set up in Syria, okay, I think it's like a 5-year provisional government. Has there been anything in the news that indicates that Syria would be willing to go in militarily to occupy southern Lebanon or to work with the Lebanese government to go hand in hand to drive Hezbollah out? I mean, does President Trump, is there some sort of idea that could happen in place of Israel being there?
I believe, and I have not been, these have been, as Gary was saying, these have all been behind closed doors. Gary followed up his statement there by saying President Trump sometimes speaks too soon or too loud or without thinking, which we all know. But these have been behind closed doors. To my understanding is Syria has been involved in some of these and is willing. So my understanding, I could be wrong about that, but it is, it has been in the mix.
Yeah, there's some. So I'm going to jump in here. There is some precedence for this because Syria has been dealing with Hezbollah just from cross-border attacks. And
into Syria?
Yeah, into Syria. And so they've launched, small sorties, attacked Hezbollah terrorist cells and stuff in Lebanon. So there's some precedent for this. I think the thought process behind it is kind of what was mentioned is that in order to get rid of Hezbollah, you are going to have to go to get rid of them completely. You'll have to go into Lebanon enough to uproot them and weaken them enough to where maybe the people and the Lebanese military, which a lot of people don't know, Lebanon does have a military.
Right.
It's just subordinate to whatever Hezbollah, actually
they can't do it on their own.
They can't do it on their own. So enough to weaken them so that maybe, the Lebanese military and the people can push Hezbollah out and remove them. I think it's just the reality is that in that part of the world, there is rampant anti-Semitism. People just hate the Jews. No matter what country you're in that surrounds them, there is a distrust and a hatred for Jewish people in Israel. So I think the point is that if Israel, Israel probably could go in enough at some point. It would be hard. It wouldn't be easy, but they could probably go in at some point if their focus was solely on Lebanon and Hezbollah and uproot Hezbollah. But the people themselves, the Lebanese people, may not be receptive of that, and they may not like that. Whereas if Syria is going in to clean up, and probably working with Israeli intelligence or Israeli forces to a degree, then maybe the people would be more accepting of that.
Well, I would say I would also add to that that, and I assume Gary Bauer is right. I assume you're right, Tony, about what the Lebanese people would accept vis-a-vis Israelis being in their country. Okay, that you're probably going to get better intelligence from the Lebanese speaking to Syrians about who is a member of Hezbollah than you would have if Israelis are asking for that information because of that anti-Semitism and that hatred of Israelis. So I kind of, although I didn't understand it when I heard it yesterday, I kind of like President Trump's idea here that if you could get a kind of a coalition with between Syria and Lebanon to uproot and drive out Hezbollah, and maybe even have some sort of a peacekeeping force involving the Syrians, that would probably work better. But on the other hand, Steve, you can't tell the Israelis what to do. And they probably may be lacking some of that intelligence from the Lebanese. They probably figure they have to flatten buildings. That's what they had to do in Gaza. And maybe that's the only way they can get rid of Hezbollah without knowing who's a member of that terrorist organization.
Yeah, I mentioned yesterday that they're based on their war in Gaza, they have among urban warfare examples, they have the lowest civilian death rate in warfare history by far.
You mean in that kind of house-to-house?
Urban house-to-house fighting. They have consistently set their soldiers to danger where a bomb could have just done the job.
Right.
But they've to spare civilians. And we know that the Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis in Syria, by the way, too, are more than willing to use their civilians, their children, as human shields. So it's a lose-lose situation sometimes for that. And the only other thing I'd say is, as far as collecting intelligence, I would not downplay Israel's ability to know who is
That's true.
Hezbollah and who's not.
And
they told the beepers at one point.
and know who's going to get a visit from a cruise missile while they're eating their cornflakes.
Right. So, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I like the idea floated by President Trump. Who knows if it's going to sit well with Netanyahu and
At least
Israel?
it gives some context to what he said. Yeah.
It does give some context to it.
Yeah.
All right. What next?
All right. Listen, we need to let our listeners know here. Parents, if you have kids that are listening, we love for families to listen here. I hope they learn a lot about world affairs. But this next story is going to be a little difficult for adult ears, much less children.
Grim
It's
reality.
I hate to do this, but this is such an important story. And so I'm going to ask if you have young children or children that are sensitive to this kind of thing, this is about sexual abuse, that you find some other activity for them for the next 20 minutes or so.
Right.
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take, but we have the official report from England on the gang rape crisis over there. It's taken a long time to get out, but for decades, young white girls, and the race is important here, as we will get into, have been groomed and plied and kidnapped and raped with impunity by Muslim men in England. And the report is out, and this is what the report found. At the very least, 250,000 young white girls have been subjected to repeated rape, gang rape, trafficking, torture, pregnancy, forced Islamic conversion, lifelong trauma, and the number is probably higher. Let me get through several of these points here. In court records and official inquiries, around 87% of those convicted in these groups based on child sex exploitation bore distinctively Muslim names. The vast majority of the men involved in these gangs were not convicted. These are Muslim men that have been brought before the court and given a pass. They started finding out that there was a problem. They started making a comprehensive list of grooming gang convictions in 1997. So for about 30 years, this has been going on at least. While the largest rape gangs were operated by Pakistani Muslims, smaller groups from Somalia, Iran, Syria, Turkey, and other Muslim origins were involved. Listen to this. The report goes on to say that these gangs were religiously motivated to carry out these rapes under the theological teaching of al-Wala wal-Bara, which demands subjugation of the infidel, including sex slavery as a form of subjugation. These men claimed their faith allowed them to do this, and oftentimes, several times at least, their wives were complicit in this. They found unspeakable crimes incurred in at least 149 local authority districts, close to 40% of all the districts across the United Kingdom. These rape gangs were active. The horrific crimes have only escalated in recent decades. They found that this has been almost exclusively helped and furthered by the Labor Party, the liberals, the Democrats, their version of the Democrats. The horrific crimes have only escalated in recent decades, especially following Tony Blair's 1997 victory and the start of the orchestrated mass immigration. Perpetrators built organized networks that transported victims between towns and cities and passed girls between multiple men, adult men. Police forces ignored repeated reports, criminalized the victims instead of the perpetrators, destroyed evidence, allowed known rapists to walk free, retaliated against whistleblowers. It was going on in public schools, girls as young as 13, pregnancies. School officials observed older men collecting the girls at the gates after school and did nothing. So they found specifically Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, and Keir Starmer, the current mayor of London, knew about these, had documentation of evidence of these, and buried it and denied it and lied about it.
So that they wouldn't be accused of being racist?
So they wouldn't be accused of being racist or
Islamophobic.
So this is just one. The testimonies in here are horrific, and we can't read them, but I will read this one report. Anna was living in a children's home in Bradford in 2002. From the age of 13, she was raped and abused while in the home, and at 15, she was forced into a Sharia marriage. Her social worker attended the marriage ceremony.
All right. Okay, first of all, let me ask this, Steve. Do we have a article that's on afn.net that's going to be coming on this?
I'm working the story today. It should be up tomorrow or,
Okay,
good.
All right, and folks, if you want to find out more on this, I know that was very grim to hear what Steve was saying, infuriating. You can just simply type in, I just checked, UK gang rape report, and information on this will come up. The inquiry asserts that 87 to 95% of perpetrators were of Pakistani Muslim heritage. You've already noted, Steve, that this was religiously motivated.
And justified.
Tony, I don't personally, I think that UK officials who let this slide ought to go to prison. But I do not know two things. I don't know why dads weren't killing these people in the streets, these perpetrators. I also don't know why the UK is not on fire right now. I'm not sure where the men are. We're starting to see, I think, some of the protests and riots in different places. I think there was one in, was it Northern Ireland or Belfast?
Yeah.
I think some people are getting tired of it, but part of the problem is that the UK government has been threatening UK citizens with criminal reprisals if they even talk about this kind of thing.
Yep. Look, I'm gonna sum this up with just a couple of messages to our listeners, predominantly who are here in the United States. Don't ever adopt. We cannot allow socialism to ever be adopted nationwide in any capacity, where the government is your sole provider of everything, healthcare, housing, whatever it may be. Because when you are completely dependent on the government, you are more likely to subjugate yourself and to do whatever they say at the risk of the government removing things or coming after you. I think a lot of this falls at the feet of the people of the UK. I mean, the officials, yeah, of course. I mean, they should be arrested, obviously. But the people have continued to vote for these people. They have continued to accept restriction after restriction. You know, that accelerated with COVID. You know, excuse me, sir, police knocking on doors. Excuse me, sir, we saw you posted something, you know, where you seemed a little upset on Facebook. We want to talk to you about that, or we're going to arrest you. You know, that type of thing. They've accepted this, and this is what you get. So a totalitarian regime, which is, in my opinion, what the UK government is at this point. A totalitarian regime is not concerned about protecting the people so much as it is concerned about protecting groups that benefit them with either their votes or whatever else they can provide them. So that's the first thing. That was kind of a broad point. The second thing is, folks, I don't know how often we do this. Don't ever give up your guns. Don't ever give up your guns so that you're with a group of people in the street while a man is attacking, I'll keep it clean, attacking another man with a knife, so that you have no choice but to either step in and intervene physically, hand to hand. Don't ever give up your guns in this, because this is what happens. I assure you, if there was a Second Amendment in the UK, I don't think the government would be as bold as it is now, decades and decades later. And there would be far more recourse for the people to take matters into their own hands than they have right now. I just, it's kind of astounding to me. I'm kind of with you, Dad. You know, as a father, I don't know. I would have probably done something very radical at this point if I had tried and brought this to police, and police didn't do anything. As a matter of fact, they're threatening me. I'm surprised there haven't been more reports of radicalization going the other way than there is right now. And I'm not justifying violence against innocent people. I'm just very surprised that like you said, it's not on fire. I mean,
well, and I will say this: radicalize in the other direction is not a panacea either.
No.
Okay, but that's, to your point, that's why you can't surrender the rights you have when you've got them.
Correct.
Because then the alternatives are equally grim.
Right.
You know, and so, well said. Folks, I'll say something else here. You can never allow Islam to become I don't want to say protected, because
foothold.
Yes, gaining a foothold
right, Steve,
in terms of this kind of Sharia-oriented behavior, where they say we can break your laws because our laws say we can. You can never allow that in your country.
That's the heart of Islam, by the way.
Yes, it is.
It is.
All right, folks, more great programming directly ahead on American Family Radio. Lord willing, we'll see you right back here for more of today's issues.